Now, the time signature gets us into the counting chart and how to solve all musical rhythms. Now, it is, you know, something that has given me such pleasure and gratitude and satisfaction when my students spontaneously start counting out loud. I just think, thank you, God, it's a triumph, you know. And I was sight reading with one of my senior students the other day, and we were doing a duet, and she started counting. And it had wonderful, you know, it had half note, half notes in the rhythm, and complicated dotted rhythms and things, and she got every one of them absolutely perfect the first time. I was totally thrilled. So I don't know how much detail can we go into on this. If you're interested in this chart, can I sort of take a survey? Do you want to spend a little more time on this? Are you interested enough to want to see what this counting chart is all about? Mm-hmm. It is amazing. It is so wonderful. I love it so much. I feel as if my whole life revolves around this counting chart. Because what I am able to say to my students and to everybody I meet, there is not a rhythm printed in any musical score that uses standard notation. Now, we're not talking about all this crazy electronic stuff and funny things that people do, you know, contemporary music. We are talking about learning Beethoven, Brahms, and Mozart, and, you know, some of the modern music, but not crazy stuff, okay? Standard stuff. And so if you have this system, you can work out absolutely every rhythm that's ever been printed. And when you look at some of these Gershwin things, see, that's my benchmark for my graduating students. Mm-hmm. Could they learn a Gershwin song by themselves? Because those rhythms are very, very complex. They're extremely sophisticated, you know, 30-second notes and dotted rhythms and polyrhythms and all of that stuff. And my goal is that they can tackle any one of those. And the thing is, mostly with those really complex rhythms, I don't believe that they have to be able to sight read it cold. They sight read it after they have taken their little pencil and they have written in the counting and they have solved all of the rhythmical difficulties before they start to play it. And then you'll see the last thing, once you've done the counting, which we'll come back to the writing and the counting and the time values, the last thing they do is to tap the rhythm on the fall board before they start to play it. That is so incredibly helpful when you are learning how to sight read, so that you don't have to be doing two things at one time. You know, the idea of one step at a time. So we're isolating elements, and if we just have them concentrate on the rhythmical element. I had the joy the other day of teaching my granddaughter, who is not studying piano, but would like to play. I mean, I won't go into all the details of why this hasn't happened for her, but it was important for me to teach her this piece because she's going to come and have lessons at More Than Music, and she needed to have a piece that she could play where nobody would say, oh, you're only in level 1 of something. So I've given her a charming piece that is in our collection called Everybody's Perfect Masterpieces. It's the little joke. That's the most adorable piece. It sounds wonderful, and it is the simplest thing in the world to learn because it's just triads, the two triads sitting next door to one another. So we did the rhythm first. I love you, Miss Shell. I love you, Miss Shell. I love you, Miss Shell. They get it. It's easy for them. We didn't have to go into subdivisions because she wasn't having to do the reading of it. I just taught it to her by rote. But the more you can do with the rhythm ahead of time, the more effective it can be. Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about this counting chart, which is what we use to teach the kids how to count out loud. I love this chart. I think I gave you the printed one. That is in the manual, you know, and it's also contained in our ornamentation book. We've been using it for years, and we just adore it. And it's kind of fun to do. So why don't we, we'll spend a few little minutes on the counting chart, and then you can have a 5-minute break, and then we'll come back and do some more things. Okay, are you all ready? Now, before we start counting and tapping this, I have to tell you what the ground rules are for this counting. You alternate hands all the time. No hand taps twice in a row, because lots of people, when they see the triplets, they think they should do 1 ta ta, 2 ta ta. But that's not true. We do 1 ta ta, 2 ta ta. So the hands are only alternating, because when you start going really fast like that, to do,
yeah,
you know, you're paralyzed in just half a second. So alternating means it's sort of like a drum roll. Eventually you can go so fast like that with your hands that you can't do it the other way. When the division of the beat is even, the accent will come on the same hand every time. So it's 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. When it's a triplet rhythm, the accent alternates. So it's 1 ta ta, 2 ta ta, 3 ta ta, 4 ta ta. And when we get down to triplet 16ths and 32nd notes, which is represented by the 1 / and //, that means those are hand taps, but it's going too fast to say a word for each one of the syllables unless we slow it down so much. So at that point, we go back to saying 1 and 2 and 3 and for the 30 seconds, it's 1 and 2 and 3 and. So it's complex. It may seem a little overwhelming to you, but let's do it together, counting out loud, just the way you want all your students to do it. And we'll go slow enough. And that's the big key with this. You want them to go really slow so that they don't get into a tangle when they get to the smaller subdivisions. With the younger students, I make a separate chart for them, and I only give it to them up to the 16th notes. That's enough for a long time. They don't have to do the triplet 16ths and the 30 seconds for a while. So are we ready?
Yes.
And we're going to count 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 ta ta, 2 ta ta, 3 ta ta, 4 ta ta, 1 ta and ta, 2 ta and ta, 3 ta and ta, 4 ta and ta, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Bravo, bravo. You all did marvelously on that. Very good. Now, if you can do that, there isn't anything you can't do rhythmically. It doesn't get any more complex than that, unless you get to polyrhythms. Now, I hadn't intended to go into this, but when I went to Colorado earlier in last year, at the end of the year, I had made a whole lecture about sight reading, because I get so excited about sight reading because I feel successful now myself, and I sort of feel I've got a grip on helping my students with it. Finally, thank you, God. After all these years, you know, there's a wonderful saying, so soon old, so late smart. The only answer to that is better smart sometime than never. So, and I thought to myself, what am I doing? Valerie, what are you doing? Everybody else knows how to sight read better than you. They don't need you to talk to them about sight reading. And then when I got there, I found they did want me to talk to them about sight reading. They weren't, all of them, as confident as I thought everybody else was except me. You know, and so I hadn't planned to talk about polyrhythms at all. And they said, we want to talk about that. You want to talk about that too?